All right, let's go to get started.
Yeah, let's go.
So welcome to the first installment of the Universal Production Music Panel. I'd like to start off saying thank you so much for taking time out of your day to come out and listen to some great information for some cool guys in the industry. Want to go, Ralph, and do a round of introductions, state your name, what you do, title, and one fun fact, about yourself, a hobby or something like you would like to address to the audience. Let's start with David.
Cool. What's up, all? My name is David Kelley. I am the Senior Music Manager and Global Licensing and Partnerships for 2K. So I work on NBA 2K with Daye, my fellow panelists here. I came from GoPro to 2K about 2.5 years ago, and it's been an amazing journey. It's working on video games and music at the same time is obviously a dream come true. So that is great. One fun fact about me, I only have one good party trick, which is I can breathe fire, but that's all you need, so.
Okay.
I feel like we need to see that now.
I'll be ready for that.
Right, proof it didn't happen, yeah.
Yeah. All right. Thanks so much for that, David. That's a cool trick, man. Kerry, you up next, man. Tell us about yourself.
My name is Carey Loftin. I'm a video producer for the Dallas Cowboys, going into my 3rd season with the team. I'm doing just bulk of the social content, creative content. One fun fact about me is I've never worked in sports before this. So it's new territory, constantly learning, constantly growing. So it's awesome.
Dope, man. Yeah. Go Dallas Cowboys, my home city. So shout out.
Yes, sir.
All right. Brandon, tell us about yourself, man.
Yes, sir. I'm Brandon Lowe, or known to a lot of people as B-Lowe. You can call me whichever. I've been at ESPN now since, 2009. Associate producer there. Primarily work on NBA Countdown, but also The Jump with Rachel Nichols and various other things. Love what I do. Fun fact about me is I'm one of the thousands of people who got a quarantine puppy. He's driving me crazy, but also I'm glad to have him. So, little 9-week-old puppy. So, yeah, I've been kept on my toes in this time, man.
I've been seeing those IG stories, man. Cracking up, man.
Yeah, man. He's a lot, man.
That's great, man. Jared, man, what's good?
What's up, everybody? My name is Daye, representing NBA 2K today. Been with the company a couple years now. And fun fact about myself, I'm also an actor. Yeah, I'm also an actor.
Okay.
Just I see it as like a side hustle, but also like passion project kind of thing. One of those ways I get to express myself. So hopefully looking forward to doing more interviews, but in other fields, to diversify. So, but thank you guys for the opportunity. Happy to be here. Happy to represent NBA 2K today. Very thankful.
Great. Lucas, my man, what's good?
Hey guys, I'm Lucas Spry. I've been at Universal Production Music as the music director and producer for a little over 3 years now. A fun fact about me, I love long walks on the beach with my dogs, and luckily they all opened up here, at least for exercising. So I've been loving that.
That's great. And I'm A.D. Johnson. I'm the one me and Lucas helped put this event together to kind of give a break from the normal reality we have going on here, and just to share our thoughts. One cool fact about me, I've been playing drums since I was 5 years old, so music has been a part of my life for quite some time now. So that's one thing. So yeah, man, glad you guys can be here. And also some chat room kind of like room keeping. Definitely network, be friendly, reach out, post your IG handles and everybody connect with each other. And we'll have some polls that'll be going on periodically throughout the Zoom panel, just to kind of share where you're from, what you do, kind of things like that. Definitely take advantage and and give us some information on you about yourselves. And if you have any questions, there's also a Q&A tab down at the bottom of your screen where you can submit your questions. We'll have a question segment towards the end that I'll be able to see and kind of go from there. All right. So first question, man, I wanted to reach, kind of get this to everyone. It's two-part questions. First off, how are you adjusting in this time of quarantine and social distancing? And also, how does it affect your day-to-day work and content creation and music licensing overall? We can start with Jared.
Yeah. So first and foremost, man, I'm adjusting really well. I feel like it was quite the adjustment at first, just because I think it was like day one of quarantine for California. We were prepping for the ESPN Players Tournament. So it was the first time we ever had actual NBA players playing our game on ESPN for charity, all for good causes. But yeah, it was really cool. So really those first few weeks were a lot of definitely a lot of firsts for me, so to speak. But we as a team, we did a great job managing the workload. We're proud of how the tournament was executed, the community's response. So now it's kind of like autopilot. We found the groove, and now we just, we're staying in that lane. So we're doing really well.
Great. Brandon, what about you, man? How you been adjusting, and how has it affected your day-to-day work life?
Yeah, at first, initially, it was pretty tough. Obviously, all we do is sports, and as you can imagine, everything shut down. Literally shut down. And so I think for about the first week, it was a big adjustment for all of us trying to, one, just get our bearings, get adjusted to not being able to go into the studio. That's the, great thing about ESPN, as diverse as we are, and, streaming platforms, everything now, and digital, our bread and butter is still, linear TV in the studio, control room, big production. So it was kind of just us all coming together collectively, wrapping our minds around how do we put on a show, The Jump with Rachel Nichols, and, these NBA, legends and Hall of Famers and analysts. How do we present that to the public in the same fashion, but with a completely different workflow? So, it took us a few weeks. It was definitely an adjustment on that end. And then also, I work on NBA Countdown, like I said, primarily. That is a pregame show, as you guys know. There is no pregame. So, again, it was us, pivoting. How do we, still stay relevant, still be in front of people? We've eventually figured out we'll put out YouTube videos, which do pretty decent on the World Wide Web. But it was just, again, pivoting how we think, our focus. And from a creative standpoint, I think, pretty much, everybody in here is creatives. I'm sure you can relate. It goes in waves, right? Some days you're super creative, you're locked in because you're just basically locked inside of your apartment or your home. The other days, it's just a struggle, right? Trying to find that creative spark. It comes in waves. You're brilliant Monday, and then Wednesday, you're just, you feel like you're hopeless. So, full transparency, it's been an adjustment, but I think, just from, my personal standpoint, company standpoint, I'm proud of what we've been able to do in this time. And like I said, be able to shift focus and still put out quality content in this time.
That's dope, man. Yeah, that's definitely an interesting going for, and having to do live events and then, get creative and kind of adjust to that format, man. That's pretty impressive.
Absolutely.
Yeah, man. Kerry, what's going on in the Dallas Cowboys world?
What's up, man? It's been tough, man. It's been an adjustment. It's been kind of weird because when everything kind of kicked off, that was really kind of the end of the season. We had kind of gotten through the Super Bowl and everything was kind of calming down. So, February, March, April was kind of like, all right, cool, let's just kind of see how it's going. But now that we're kind of getting into things with the draft and schedule release was really, really interesting, just trying to figure all of that stuff out. So it's been a really tough adjustment, just trying to get as creative as you can without access to anything. I was actually in the middle of a big docuseries that we were doing, following scouts around from Senior Bowl to pro days and all of that stuff. And we just had to halt production on that. And we had promised 4 episodes to the sponsor. So it was crazy just trying to do WebEx meetings with these guys in the middle of them trying to do WebEx meetings with like potential draft picks and stuff like that. So just that sort of stuff was just really, really crazy dealing with it. And now things have kind of calmed down, but you know, we're in that point to where it's like supposed to be OTAs and it's supposed to be mini camp and all of that stuff. So we're just trying to figure out what we can do to not just sit around and wait for things to open back up, but to keep providing content to our fans for, you know, so they can get through this and kind of still feel like they have a piece of sports.
Gotcha. David, tell us more about your world in the 2K world. I know Jared expressed some other things, but as far as your position, how has it been affecting you and how you've been coping with this?
Yeah, you know, it was an adjustment when we first got that shelter-in-place order and the work from home. I mean, Jared and I are used to working super close together. I see that dude every day. You know, it's one of the best parts of my day, too. So, you know, it's a little different being away from everybody we work with in the office. You know, that synergy, that vibe that you usually get is definitely something that's hard to replicate when you're working from home. But like all the guys have been saying, like the adjustment is kind of smoothed out over time. So, you know, for us, for Jared and I, you know, it's a different story. Business is definitely booming. So everybody's staying at home, they're playing games, they're missing sports. So they're playing a lot of 2K. You know, they're connecting over the games. So work is definitely not slowed down. I'd say we're licensing more music and doing more creative around music than we probably ever have. But that's definitely in a response to trying to make sure that, you know, where people are missing their sports or missing their usual lifestyle interactions, we're trying to fill that gap for them a little bit and do our best to create something that they enjoy and appreciate and can sink their teeth into right now. Maybe distract them from some of the stress of the world. So all in all, going well. It's definitely a big adjustment, and but it's a blessing, and we're happy to have the work, you know. So all good things.
Well, I definitely been helping out with some NBA 2K numbers. Me and my friends definitely play as a release. So appreciate that. The game is in the building.
We're here for you. We're here for you, AD.
Yes, Lucas, man. I know from the Universal production standpoint, man, with your role as a producer, like how you been doing hanging with this, and what have you been doing to engage with artists and producers to add more content to our library?
Yeah. So, you know, I'm finishing up projects that I started pre-quarantine with a lot of the producers and artists and writers that I'm working with. We took things remote. We're doing remote sessions. You know, I'm using different apps like Soundtrap and Audio Mover and working with those within those, you know, platforms. And it's really cool. You know, I honestly, it's taught me a couple things and, you know, I want to come out stronger than I was going in here. And so this makes it capable for me to give open feedback and get the tracks that we need for our clients, you know, up to speed and in real time too. I can do real time, you know, edits and critiques and notes. And so that helps a lot. So, you know, I'm used to sort of working remotely. I'm running around different studios and, you know, working on different projects and stuff. So that hasn't been, you know, too much of a change as far as just working on the laptop and working mobile. But you know, it's the meetings and it's the going to the studio sessions, obviously, and you know, maybe a lunch and dinner or something like that for a client and or a producer writer. So that's what's, you know, been a weird shift of things. But, you know, the fact that they've embraced it, you know, they're creatives, they can always be working. You know, I'm trying to usher that in and to see how that works for us. And that's been working fine. So I've been okay.
Yeah, same here, man. Working from home is a little interesting for me. I usually was more in the office. And being able to reach out to clients, that was my biggest thing. I've reached out to a lot of clients just to make sure they're good. Not trying to sell them anything, just literally like, what are you okay? Like, what can we do to help you? Do you have pending projects? So I was reaching out to make sure Kerry had what they need, you know. And, you know, you guys utilize a lot of our music, and we definitely appreciate that, and glad to hear a lot of productions and projects are still going on, even in the midst, and just have to adjust. Same on our end. We're doing the same thing as well. Let's get right to it, man. Like, you guys all utilize the music and utilize music as part of your content creation formats. Like, why is it so important? What drives music to be a part of a video production or a part of a video game? What is it about that? Brandon, you can start off with you.
Yeah, I mean, it's one of the things I say all the time, with any sort of content. I mean, the music really, to me, carries a story, right? Like you can go out, you can shoot the most beautiful footage on the Red Cam or the Alexia, whatever, a mirror, whatever, but it's just something missing, right? It feels hollow without music. And particularly with me working primarily on NBA, I always say, hip hop in itself, it's like a perfect marriage between NBA, basketball, and hip hop. They just kind of speak to one another. And so it's like, it's really hard to tell a story without music because I feel like music drives it and just enhances it and takes any video project to the next level.
Got you. Jared, what are your thoughts on, why is it so important? I know 2K does a lot of releases and things like that with music. Why is it so important that you involve music as part of your productions and your games?
Yeah, Mo. I mean, Brandon broke it down perfectly. Music is the X factor. That's what I like to say a lot of times. It's funny that you guys asked this too. I was just talking to my girlfriend about it because she works in social work. So now that we're home, she gets like this insider view to kind of like what we get to do and how we tell our stories through the game. And when it comes to putting a project together, one of the first questions we ask ourselves is like, what is the tone? What is the key messaging, right? And to be honest, just like Brandon said, like you can have the most perfect footage in the world, but without that right song or without like the right energy, that perfect footage can fall flat, So as we get ready for, 2K21, we're being very selective when it comes to, finding that perfect song. And, I don't know if you guys remember from 2K14 when we transitioned to next gen, when we went with Phil Collins, that In the Air Tonight, that I can feel it. Yeah. So so that right there, we're trying to be very careful with with what we have coming up for with next gen. And I wasn't with 2K at the time, but I remember like getting chills when I saw, those next gen graphics coupled with, that Phil Collins song. And I'm just like, it really took it to the next level. So,
Absolutely.
in summary, music is the X factor, in my opinion.
Got you. Well, Kerry, what makes it important for you, man? I've seen you utilize that a lot for like a lot of action shots and things like that, man. Why is it important for you to utilize that and make sure you're finding the right track?
Yeah, man, it's super important. Like before I start touching any video, I spend sometimes days looking for the right track if I have the opportunity on a project, man, because it can make or break it. It's kind of like audio. It's one of those things where it's like if you have a good track, people won't really notice, but if you have a bad track, it kind of draws attention to itself. So for me, it's very, sometimes I'll have like an idea of what I want. And then sometimes I just go on and I'm just clicking through until I find something that stands out. But it's super, super important. A lot of times people will just go in and pick what like speaks to them, but you have to think about like, what's the footage? What's the tone? Like, what's the message? What, is this going to be a distraction or is it going to help play nicely with it? You know what I mean? I think it's just as important as, like Brandon said, making sure you got footage shot well, color corrected, it goes right in line with the rest of that stuff. So I spend a ton of time just searching for tracks and sometimes even building a library of tracks of like, if I have, I'll go through and build like, and start subcategories like on my computer of like, this is when I want something hype. This is when I want something with a piano. This is when I want something that's a little bit more like down. So it's can't stress enough about how much time you need to spend making sure your audio is right.
Got you. I'm gonna throw a little spin on you, David. There's been a lot of talk on the style of music, especially in sports and gaming, that's been going around. And what have you seen the most popular style in the last couple of years, David, as far as in gaming, sports? Why is it connecting? And those two points on that, like why is that music is being used, that style, and then why is it connecting to the audience like that?
I like that question, AD. It's what I think we see and what we notice, and also we try to strive for is, I would say I classify it as future facing. I think even 10, 15 years ago in the music industry, it was a lot about safe choices, right? What's hitting on the radio, what's hitting on the Billboard charts. the most exciting thing to me that's happening right now, and what's really cool about what we get to do, all of us here, is that people are kind of agnostic to genre, you know, like people are just excited to hear new sounds and new things. And if people are pushing the envelope, you hear that on the radio next to those Billboard top 40s, you know, just I can think of, you know, hundreds of different artists that are doing that in big ways. But especially on the Universal roster, you know, like guys like Travis Scott, you know, obviously, you know, he's done his time, he's paid his due. But he's doing something new and unique all the time. But then he's got all these artists following up in his wake that don't sound like anybody else. You know, Sheck West that came up behind him. You know, I'm blanking on a few of those guys. But, you know, I think what it really is about, I think the style of music is like that future facing, and like people are kind of hungry for that next sound and that new sound. And there's never been like a better time to be a music creator. You know, people can create whatever they want and whatever they want it to sound like, you know, in their bedrooms, and with, you know, the software that's available, with the digital audio workstations you can get, you know, you can have a pro studio in your house for under $1,000 these days, and be making stuff that can be heard by millions of people with SoundCloud and Bandcamp. So it's all.
So,
Oh no!
Damn,
I guess he oh man, he cut out.
Yeah, we lost the homie.
Soldier down.
Soldier down. It's all good. No, I think what he was getting at, man, it was a lot of he's letting a lot of artists in the trap genre, I guess. But I know you saying future sounding, more people taking risk on their sound. Lucas, like you seen a lot of clients ask you, you know, the style of genre. Why is that? Why do you think that music is connecting so much with the audience right now when it comes to pairing them with the video content or a game?
Sure. Well, I mean, I take a step further and I'll point out to, you know, why Kerry, Jared, Brandon, David are here. I mean, these are young guys that are, you know, in these roles that, you know, grew up, you know, around the same time that, you know, we all came up on, and the music that, you know, we're used to and we expect as our generation, you know, when we go into these roles and we're asked to put in, you know, music to make our content look dope, you know, we're going to refer to what we know. And so, you know, when I'm doing trap and hip hop, which is primarily, you know, some of the most popular, you know, music for sports, you know, I'm referencing, you know, I'm talking to these guys and I'm asking them what they're listening to and what they suggest. And, you know, the best ideas come from them, and we expand on that and, you know, chase down those producers and whatnot. And, you know, it's all these guys. It's from, you know, just the young guys getting in these roles and asking for the music that they like.
Got you. Switching up the questions a little bit. So, you know, we all love watch TV, film, commercials in the past, and we have that favorite track that you feel like that worked the best. Like, wow, I can't believe they was able to figure out that track will fit in that scene or in that game or in that video edit. Like, what is your favorite sync that you've seen? It don't have to be something you've done, but what have you seen in TV and film that's been your favorite song? Say, wow, that really worked with that scene or that game. What? Let's start with Brandon.
I mean, favorite sync. If we're talking from a universal standpoint, I just think because I hear it all the time, but I know the track like back of my hand is the Game Chose Me track off of Beast Mode, and the reason why is it's applicable to so many things. Like I've used it on, you know, opening, you know, tip off for the NBA season teases, right? That's going to start the whole show, kick off the whole season. I've seen it used on montages for, you know, Heisman hopefuls. I've seen it used in so many different places. And I think it just kind of speaks to just the essence of the song. First of all, we know the beat is driving. And that's one thing I always try to stress to people, you know, when they're like, well, you know, what are you looking for? How do you pick music for something? And I'm saying if it's action video, hype video, it has to feel hype. It, you know, has to feel urgent, right? And Game Chose Me it's like a bop, but it feels urgent at the same time.
Now you don't have to say, you know, from someone from my music. It could be anything. It could be a TV show or a film or TV. So that's your favorite one? That's great, man. I like that.
Yeah. No. It's because, well, here's the thing. I think sometimes I always tell people it's like sometimes I feel like we're too inside baseball, where it's like we hear things that other people might not notice. You know what I mean? And so when you hear something 1,000 different places, you know what I'm saying? Like, it sticks with you.
Gotcha. What about you, Jared? Like, what have you seen in this world that, you know, we study in this game about putting music placement? What do you got?
Man, I got to be honest, one of the first that comes to mind, and this may not, and not everybody may remember this, but from 2K11, do you remember when we had, like, it was the Michael Jordan introduction, when you first got the game and you booted up the game and the game was loading? Basically, I don't know if you guys remember, it was the song from Chicago, like the team song was Serious by the Alan Parsons Project. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So basically, when I got my game for my birthday that year, you know, I loaded up. I'm looking in, and you know, I'm a little younger, so I didn't grow up around the time Jordan was playing like that. But I do remember that song, you know, connected with all of his highlights. So to put in the game, you know, and to see, you know, that song with Michael Jordan coming out the tunnel for the first time, and then on top of that, before that, the only other time Jordan was in even 2K was 2K3 when he was on the Wizards. You know, so this is the first time that I'm seeing, you know, a perfect synchronization of, you know, authenticity, because you're checking the box, this actually happened in real life. And now you're also checking the box of like having a dope song with a dope visual with somebody that people haven't seen in the game for almost 7 years at the time. So, you know, that was probably one of my favorite synchronizations. It was Serious by the Alan Parsons Project. And it was Michael Jordan coming out the tunnel for the first time in NBA 2K11. And,
man,
you know,
that's my iconic stuff right there.
Yeah.
And you know, just to piggyback off of that, it what Jared's talking about, it also, what I tell people about music, you know, for us that love it, it touches on that nostalgia, right? Like, if you touch on nostalgia, you hit something within somebody, immediately it clicks. Like, Jared, it probably took not even 3 full seconds, you know what I'm saying, for that screen to load, and you were just in. Like, it just transports you. That's it. And
you couldn't even skip it. You couldn't skip it. Like, they made you sit there and appreciate it. And you had to play that first challenge before you even got to the main menu. So that authenticity is what kept me around for 2K12, 2K13, you know, and so on and so forth as we get ready for 21. So I appreciate you remembering that, B. For real.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, man, that's good stuff, man. I'm definitely a Michael Jordan fan. I'm loving his Last Dance project right now. It's one of my favorite things is watching that right now during this quarantine time. So, yeah, man, good stuff. Kerry, what do you have, man? What favorite all time? Like, it don't have to be any music you use. It could be something you saw in a film, TV, movie, TV show, whatever.
For me, I'm going to have to go with, and I hate saying this because it's a terrible movie, but the whole movie, I don't know if anybody's seen Baby Driver. But like,
I have not seen that.
I haven't seen that either.
Like, Jamie Foxx is in it. A couple other people, but like,
I gotta go watch it then. Jamie in there.
The storyline is not great, but the way that they did the music, like everything synced to a beat. So like, it was like the shootout scene and like everything from like the clips going into the guns, the bullets hitting the floor. Like, I even read an article. I remember when the movie came out. This was before I had even seen it, about like how they didn't just put tracks in like after the movie was shot. Like, they actually went through and synced everything like right down to the beat. Like, they took it, like that was the whole gist of the movie. And that's probably why the story wasn't that good. But it was just a little jumble to me. But man, like, I'm telling you, if you hadn't seen that movie, like, go check it out. It will really impress you, like the amount of detail. But it just goes to show, like, again, how important music is and syncing it up. And, you know, I know like sometimes as editors, we get so into like, you know, syncing on beats and doing these cool different edits, but like that movie took it to a whole nother level.
Yeah, man, good stuff. Lucas, what about you, man?
I'll throw a little curveball. I was watching this Beatles documentary a while back called 8 Days a Week. And there's a scene where they're talking about the manager or something, of the old manager of the Beatles, and the song "Illusion" by Henry Mancini came on, and I had no idea, you know, what that song was. It's a classical. It's from a soundtrack back in the day, maybe the 50s or 60s. But just the vibe of it was amazing, and then it just took me down the Henry Mancini, you know, trail, and I learned so much about him, did so much research, and respect the heck out of him. And, you know, that changed my perspective a lot. And to this day, I still listen to his soundtrack and, you know, all his songs and, you know, think of things like that and incorporate that somehow creatively in my brain. And it really did change, my life as far as, syncs go.
Yeah, man. I definitely agree with that, man. It's always about what catches your ear, man. And one of mine is, you remember the song "I Got Five" on it, right? By the Lunas or whatever. Like that, how they use that broke down the breakdown version on the movie Us. I haven't seen anything like that. It made me really fell in love with like reusing music and like thinking about another way of how to even break it down. Like that was one of my favorite things I've seen in a sync wise. Like it made me want to go watch the movie literally because they was breaking it down like that, the movie Us, man. And shouts out to them for even thinking about slowing it down. And he's doing it again with the whole Beyonce "Say My Name" joint from the other movie. Candyman. So yeah, so I love that direction they're going with that. So yeah, man, good stuff. So out of all the projects you guys have worked on, you guys have worked on quite a bit. I know in your time span in the industry. What is your favorite project? What is that project that meant most to you? To say, listen, this is at the top of my list of favorite things I like to share of things I've done. What is that project for you? Let's start with Jared.
Man, I'm honored to even be able to answer this question. I mean, one of the first that comes to mind is probably this Kobe tribute video we did a couple months ago back in April, I guess last month. But it was a simple project. I'm very proud to have worked on it. And contrary to like really my last point about just like, hype music and all of that, this was a video where like we really wanted to respect his legacy, but we didn't want to say goodbye, and because he's going to live forever in the game of basketball. He's going to live forever in our game. So we really wanted to just respect him and really let the community know that, we're also deeply affected by his passing. There's not a lot of brands out there that can say that they've had, going on 20-year relationship with one of the greats, and I was really thankful to have worked on this one because it featured Kobe in every single solitary NBA 2K from the first 2K in 1999 all the way up to 2K20. So it was really cool going through and getting that archival footage and really showing respect to Kobe. I remember being in the office super late one night. I think it was almost midnight or something like that. And, I just locked in that Mamba mentality, all corniness aside. And, we put it out, and I think it broke a record for one of our posts on Twitter too. So I'm super thankful for that, rest in peace.
Good stuff, man. Yeah, R.P. Kobe, man. Good stuff, man. Kerry, what about you, man?
For me, it probably has to be the hype video that we produced last season going into the game against the Eagles, where basically our season was on the line. It was, if we didn't win, it was basically, our playoff hopes were non-existent at that point. So, man, it actually got a lot of traction because we didn't use any music. So there was no track or anything. It was just all sound design. But people don't even realize that there was still so much that went into it. I still use the track from Universal because if you go back and you listen, there's that bed there, and it's kind of like this constant rising tension kind of playing off of the storyline of like, it all comes down to this. We had this really cool soundbite from Dak from his from like a press conference from a previous game. So like just using all of those different elements that wasn't necessarily a music with tracks and lyrics and all of that stuff, but just using all of these different sounds and elements to still create a feeling that people could connect with. That was something that I pushed myself because, noticing, like, to everybody's point, just everything. Sometimes you can be scrolling on Instagram and it's just hype track, and it's a lot of the same, that everything can kind of get jumbled together. So it was just an opportunity to try to push myself to do something fresh of like, okay, well, how do you break the mold? Well, let's not use any music at all. So that was a fun project to work on, and it was received really well, even though we lost the game. So.
Gotcha, man. Good stuff, man. And I'd like to welcome back David, man. Sorry we lost you there for a little bit, man. No, man. We're right now. We're going around answering what is our favorite project. We worked on. What is that project that meant the most to us that we worked on so far in our career? Brandon, go ahead and answer that question, and we get to you next, David.
Yeah, for me, man, it's for a multitude of reasons. It's definitely I produced an entire 30-minute special for the opening of LeBron's I Promise School for ESPN. Me and Rachel Nichols went to Akron, Ohio. Quick background, I'm from Canton, Ohio, which is about 17, 20 minutes from Akron. Me and LeBron are the same age, like no mutual people, like grew up in the same area. So for me, you know, I've always been a huge LeBron fan, you know, since he joined the Cavs back in 2003. But just what he was doing in the community. What's that?
No, you good. Go ahead.
I think there's an echo.
Oh, okay. And so, you know, just being there, you know, I was boots on the ground. I got to, you know, I did interviews with, you know, some of the parents of the students going to the school. I talked to some of the kids, the administrators, the principal, the superintendent, and then obviously produced an interview with Rachel Nichols and LeBron himself on the day that school opened. And it was just a huge emotional ride the whole time, man. Like, it was just so great to see, you know, with this guy who, you know, a lot of people know his story. You know, he came from as humble of beginnings as you can imagine, right? You know, single mother, tough upbringing in the projects of Akron. And to see him now, not just giving back, because I know a lot of people give back, but start a school, like, who thinks of that? You know what I mean? Like, who thinks of that while they're still in the peak of their career? You know, people do things after they retire, which is great, but, like, he's got 1,000,001 things going on. So just being in that environment, and for me to just have a small piece of that and to tell that story of how, you know, so many people in the community that basically, you know, down the road from where I grew up, how they're being impacted, it was great. And just on the music standpoint, it was wild because at the time, now ironic, you know, Jared and David, you guys will love this. You know, I was trying to figure out how do we kick this thing off, right? Because, again, a lot of what we do at ESPN, a lot of what I do, how you were just talking about, you know, with the Cowboys hype video is, you know, hype. You know, it's hype, you know, up-tempo hype. And so this is completely different. There's no basketball footage, right? I made it a point. I didn't want a stitch of basketball footage at the top of this tease because that's not what this is about. You know, it's about more than basketball. And so I was talking with my boss. She's super dope. She's super into music. She was like, hey, I was working out. I heard this guy, Toby. I can't pronounce his last name.
Oh, yeah.
New England.
Yeah. And I still struggle to pronounce his last name.
Hell yeah.
And I'm like, oh, man, let me hear it. And I saw the title, and the title said I'm dope. I was like, oh, shoot, okay, I'm dope. Like,
oh, yeah.
And it's immediately when I played it, like, I was like, sold. And the moment I played it and started putting some of the footage together on my rough edits with just the A-roll and just a couple of B-roll shots, I was like, this is it. Like, this is it. And I kind of used that as a thread throughout the show. Like, I would sprinkle it in on some of the bumps going to break and things like that because it just kind of spoke to everything LeBron was doing right, encouraging these kids. You are dope, right? You know, you may not grow up in the greatest household. You may grow up, you know, in poverty. You may be tossed aside by everybody in your community, your society, but no matter what, you're dope and you can succeed. And together we're going to all, you know, overcome whatever challenges. So to me, like, that was the perfect example, again, for so many reasons. Like I said, personally and selfishly, that's my favorite project. But then just how the music tied into it, it was, like, perfect, you know?
Yeah,
Well said.
I actually remember that because shout out to Houston, Toby up there, man. That was a great placement. I know he gets a lot of placements with 2K as well.
Yeah.
But yeah, man, he's good stuff, man. Way to find that track because that's definitely a good track, man.
Yeah.
Toby's that dude. Toby's that dude.
Yeah, man. David, man, what about you, man? What's your favorite project you worked on since you've been in this industry?
Oh, man, I'm spoiled. That's going to be hard to choose one. You know, like I said, like for me, working kind of at the intersection of video games and music, and especially getting to work with the music I love, I have a lot of favorite moments. But you know, one of my very favorite things, I guess I'll answer it like this: is the first year I was at 2K, right when I was kind of getting my feet wet with how we do video game soundtracks and how we do video game placements within our marketing. It just like the world kind of blew wide open. And this is when I started working with Jared's team. So I'll give you two. the very first kind of big trailer placement we did was for NBA 2K19. That was the first one I worked on. We used J-Rock's Win. And I know we're all sitting here talking about, like, you know, hype moments. I have never, that is like the most biggest hype song I've ever heard. And I was like, this is pure hype all day. But, you know, getting to see that thing come to life and go to TV and go on internet for the first time and just knowing I had a tiny, small part to play in that was incredible. And then I would also say, you know, just to ping off what Brandon was saying, getting to work last year on the soundtrack, you know, for me, I'm always interested in new and upcoming artists and frontline artists and who's out there putting the work in and who needs to be discovered. And so last year, NBA 2K on the whole kind of put forward the challenge, put a call out to our whole community for artists and producers to come and send us their music. And then we were going to pick the top 10 winners and place them within the soundtrack. And so we did just a video piece on those winners. It was pretty short. It was only like 4 or 5 minutes long, but just the vibe of all those dudes, all 10 of them all converged in New York. They all met each other for the first time. You know, you're kind of worried about egos. You're worried about, you know, competing talent. And, you know, these guys are all super hungry and passionate, but they all got there and it was like they'd been friends for years. And just seeing that video come to life with the new music that like a lot of people hadn't heard to that point, and knowing that we as an organization were behind that and bringing these new artists up was just a super proud moment for me and something I always like looking back on. So, but yeah, man, shout out to Toby. He was obviously a big part of that whole campaign last year too. And glad to hear he's getting some from everybody else on the line too.
I know there's a lot of artists and producers in the room today, man, and just to hear that they are getting new artist placements even within our library, and you finding them on your own. That's a good deal. Like as an independent creator, you know, that's good to hear that that's still happening.
You know, and it's I gotta big up Lucas here too. You know, being able to work directly with Lucas and Jamie and Andy and you.
Absolutely.
Thank you. Thank you.
You know, that you guys take it seriously what you're doing. You know, you guys have artists that are making this incredible music and it just needs a platform and a venue to shine, and that's it. So, you know, we love those big placements, but also we're also looking for what's next and who's on the come up. So anytime we can give that shine out, or we can help find somebody a space to give their message and share their passion and dream in music, we love it. You know, that's part of our whole creed.
Absolutely. And just piggybacking off what David said, I think as content creators, especially now, and David, you touched on it earlier, how it's kind of, you know, future facing. I think almost more so, like, yes, you want the huge, we got Drake and we got whoever, but it's like, it's almost, for lack of a better term, more dope to be able to have somebody who's maybe bubbling at the surface who everyone doesn't know, because then when they see your trailer, when they see the feature that I've worked on or whatever, you know, people go like, oh, who's that? Like, I think everyone strives for that who's that moment, right? Like, oh, what's that?
Absolutely.
Like, you know, and like that, where you see, because you kind of see to somebody's eyes where they're like scanning, trying to figure out, like, wait, is that? No, that's not them. And so, like, yeah, like for all the, you know, the up and coming and the independent, you know, artists and producers and creators, like, yeah, man, if it's dope, like, we'll find you. You know?
Yep.
Good stuff, man. Yeah, man. Hey, take a little quick pause to just let people know that's in the chat room. We'll here in a few minutes, we'll be going through some of the questions. You can submit your questions at the bottom of your screen. There's a Q&A tab at the bottom. If you have any questions, I'll be able to go through a few and kind of get to the panel and ask to the panel your question that you have on there, man. So get to that, and we'll just go from there. So, you know, with all this going on in the world, it's been a lot of changing going on in this content creation world. You know, what do you see as the new normal going forward in our industry? What are you saying? Is it going to go back, or is there a new wave that's going to just emerge and take forth that's going forward from here, like when everything kind of settles down from the quarantine orders and things like that? What do you see the new normal as going forward in this industry? We can start with Lucas.
What is the new normal? Can you repeat the question?
No,
Sorry,
no,
I'm still
problem.
trying to help people out here.
No, we'll go to Kerry. I'm just saying, what's the new normal going forward with the industry, and where we're going as far as in the content creation and in the production world, in the editing world, and just finding music. Whatever you want to talk about with that, what is the new normal in our industry? What has changed that you see not going back to what
I
it
can take
was?
it real quick.
Okay.
So yeah, as I was saying, when these remote sessions have been going on, Audio Mover, Soundtrap, those have been two apps I've been utilizing a lot. And not to say that all sessions are going to take place there, but it's a great platform to get ideas down. It's a great platform to go song to song, note to note on, and you literally can go in there and change, midis and notes and stuff like that, and audio stuff, and at least get a solid idea down. So I'm, for the new normal, as far as, how I'm implementing all this stuff, that will definitely, stay with me going forward. And that's something I never even knew, to be honest, existed. I never used it. I never thought about it. And it helps my job. And so someone who's remote and on the move a lot, I can do a couple things now where, I can work out of my laptop and still sort of be in the studio, quote unquote. And so for me, that's a change. And I think it's a dope thing.
Gotcha. What about you, Kerry? What has changed is not going back to what it was?
Man, I just feel like everybody's starting to have just a love for like raw content, like everybody's shooting stuff on their phone these days. Everybody's, you got TikTok that's going viral and all of that stuff. It's for me, and I think the music goes hand in hand with that, kind of to David's last point, it's great to have those big name, music features, but, some of the best stuff that I've heard is people I'm like, dang, who is that person? Like, I got to go Google that stuff. So I think just because everything's a lot more accessible, I think people have a bigger opportunity now than ever to get their stuff heard and to get their stuff seen. And I love it because it creates, even moments like this where you get to collaborate with people and, maybe it's just, emailing somebody a song and they tag you in the video and you necessarily can't we put songs and videos from one guy literally just emailed us and was like, hey, here's my song. If you like it, use it. And we liked it and we used it. Sometimes just that simple. And I love that. I love how it's a connection. You don't have to go through a label all the time, or you don't have to go through all of these red flags. You can literally make something in your living room and then send it to somebody and get a big placement. So, man, I just hope that it keeps pushing towards that way, because it's awesome for the culture.
Got you. What about you, Jared?
Man, to be honest with you, like in terms of just the new normal, I personally try my best not to think about it so much, because we have so little control over it. But at the same time, on the other tip, really, I try my best to stay informed, but not too informed, if you know what I mean, so I don't start going, all over. But ultimately, I feel like with the new normal, I feel like it's going to be an adjustment for a lot of people in the sense of half the world hasn't changed one bit and the other half will never be the same. Right. So, and you get what I mean? So it's one of those where, personally, from a 2K standpoint, I think about the developers, right? Like, so, we do a good job. I'm really proud of the work that we do on the publishing marketing side of things. But imagine having to make a game while also taking care of your family, personal responsibilities, pets, all of that. So, the developers, the people who truly make the game, I think about those guys. Those are the true warriors, And I don't say that just because we're in the Bay Area, but I know, right? Finger guns, But nah, ultimately, the new normal, I feel like we're going to be okay. But in terms of like music licensing and stuff, not much has changed personally for me. I personally always start at Universal, try to find, that song, and shoot it off the DK and Max. And then, where it's smooth sailing from there. So on my tip, it hasn't changed that much, but I am thinking about the people whose lives will not be the same after this, for sure.
Gotcha. What about you, David?
I would just echo what Kerry said. As more and more people are kind of isolated, but they're still trying to scratch that creative itch, and they want to, if you got the music in you, you got to be making the music at all times, and you're not going to be hampered by the ability to not go to a studio or the inability to, not get in, with who you usually record with. And yeah, I'm like Kerry said, I'm really hopeful and expectant that this just leads to like this big rise of just really self-made kind of DIY content and music. And again, to that point, like you see with the rise of TikTok and, everybody's walking around with a camera in their pocket. Everybody's walking around with, the ability to make music, either in their pockets or like, sitting on their desktop at home. So I think a lot of the new normal for music is going to be, we're going to see a lot of really introspective projects, music that comes from really a place of passion and heart, because we're going to be exposed to a lot of, deep feelings and deep emotions over the next, few months, few years, more than already is here. So, and then new normal wise for us, it's kind of a brave new world. I'm excited to see like how things change after, things kind of calm down, and, is work from home kind of a new normal? Is working remotely or teleworking a new normal for all of us? Because, at this point, like being in a Zoom call like this, like it feels like being in the room with all of you.
Exactly.
2 months ago, that wasn't the case, but now it's like, we're here, if you're having a happy hour, or you're just chilling with the homies on Zoom, that's how we do it now. So
Exactly.
But yeah,
happy hour.
Yeah, exactly. It's almost time, right? Nah.
Yeah, it is 5 o'clock here.
At least on the West Coast. At least on the West Coast.
Somewhere.
Hold on, guys.
Somewhere it's here.
Brandon, what about yourself, man?
Yeah, I mean, kind of a lot of what the other guys have said. I think for, from my standpoint, and for, the sports world, it's interesting. I mean, we're getting to the point, I know NASCAR is about to kick off. I think golf tournaments are underway, some soccer leagues overseas. So sports will carry on. It's just going to be, what does it look like? A lot of speculation that we might not have fans for, if the NBA returns, there'll be no fans. This was speculated. NFL, college football speculated if there'll be fans. So I think that's going to be different. But I think what comes from that is, in this new normal, it was just mentioned teleworking. I think a lot of companies are going to start to pull back, their books and see like, maybe we don't need to rent out this large office building anymore. Maybe we need to rent out an office building a quarter of the size, and the rest of the staff can telework. And how that translates for us as content creators and music makers, I think it becomes a thing where, always say, as much as I love access that we have with streaming platforms, DSPs and everything, me, I'm so old school, right? I used to buy CDs, right? I was still buying CDs before quarantine, before the stores, shut down. And so, but part of that is like, you can sit with music, right? You get a CD, right? You paid your $12.99, $13.99, however much. You got those 16, 20 tracks. You sit with it, right? Especially since you paid up to $20 for it, even if you hated it. You're going to give it another spin to make sure you hated it, right? Streaming before this quarantine state was like, I hate that turn. I hate, that's dope. That's dope. But everything's classic. Everything's trash, right? That's all I'll say. There's no in between. Now with this new normal, what it's forced us to, while people aren't commuting to work where they listen to podcasts and a lot of music, where people aren't going to the gym where they listen to a lot of podcasts and music, now they're at home able to sit with stuff. You know what I'm saying? You can sit with music now. And so how I think that's going to translate with us, we've already seen it, with ESPN in terms of just straight content we put out. The Last Dance has been great for us. And because of that, anything we put out with Michael Jordan title does numbers, right? Like anything. Exactly. And people are consuming it, not just because it's Jordan and it's the thing right now, but guess what? They have time. Yeah, they're working. Yeah, they're teaching their kids their lesson plan for the day because they're homeschooling, but they have time to have the TV on in the background. So I think that only is going to be a great thing for video content and music, because now people have time to sit with projects. And so I think that's going to be a win for everyone. Whereas when, you'd have, back in the Kalani released today, Doja Cat released today, Meg Stallion released today. I'm not going to get to all of them. Now I say, well, I ain't got nothing but time. I'm going to get to all of them. And so that's what I think is going to be a positive in a new normal. In a weird way, we're going to get back to sitting with projects, which again, as a creator, which we all are, I think we appreciate that. We don't labor, Jared, you guys don't labor, months and up to a year for, the release, the next trailer, the next imprint of 2K just for somebody to like turn on for 2 seconds to be done. Like, no, like you want somebody to sit with it. So I think for us, in a selfish creator way, all right, now you're going to sit, where, TV, old school TV terms, if you had an hour show and if people stayed for past 18 minutes, that's a win, right? That nobody does that. So now it's like, oh, people going to stick around and watch 32 minutes of a show now. You know what I mean? Like, it's a win because people now have the time to sit with what's been created.
Good stuff, man. We're going to go to some questions from the audience for a few minutes here. Here's one from Channing. She was asking, how can independent content creators find and or license music for their projects? Working sometimes for other companies, I guess there's a lot of independent content creators for their video editors and things like that. What are some tricks that you guys use to find or license music for your projects? It can be, let's go with Jarrett.
My fault. It looks like my skin's peeling off my face a little bit.
It's all good.
I'll try to figure it out. But yeah, no, personally, because I'm coming through the scope of 2K, a lot of times I'm going to start at Universal, right? So to answer that question in short, I would say network with some of these people also at Universal, so you can get your stuff in Universal. So now you become part of this giant library that not just 2K is pulling from, but also ESPN, also the Dallas Cowboys, also whoever, right? So think about the totem pole and try to get somewhere on that pole. So now a lot of people have access to you, right? And I don't want to speak for anybody there, but, just saying, like, to answer that question, to get in that, pool of options, I think start at the top, try to get in there and slowly connect your dots from there. And it'll trickle into my another answer I have, just maintaining relationships. I know a lot of times people, we focus on like what we're trying to get when really like we're not thinking about the people who might have access to and from, or maybe have access to the person who has access, but also doing that the right way with integrity and being genuine about it. So, there's a lot of ways to go about it. But ultimately, I think for the purpose of this conversation, Universal getting in there is a huge step forward.
Got you. Good stuff, man. Kerry, what about you? As a content creator, how do you find your music, for your projects? If you're independent, just say if you was an independent content creator.
Yeah, if I was independent, because the truth of the matter is not everybody will be able to afford, music licensing or anything like that. It can get really, really expensive. For me, it was just all about networking and connections. Is on SoundCloud, there's hundreds of hungry people who have really good music. There's not everything's on there great, but there really are some gems. I'll even find myself that to just break it up a little bit, instead of just going straight to Universal or going to anything else, sometimes I'll just go and sit and listen and just kind of see. And if I like it enough, maybe I'll reach out to the person and be like, hey, this is who I am. This is what I'm doing. Would you like to be a part of it? I think the biggest thing that is it has to be mutually beneficial. You know what I mean? It has to be something, it has to be a give and take relationship. So I think if you're coming with that, if you're like, hey, I got this project that I'm working on, I'd love for you to be a part of it. Let's collaborate. Let's do that. I think that you'll find that that'll be really, really fruitful. And a lot of times it ends up helping to sharpen your skills, because then you get to work with all these creative people who are not necessarily just bringing music to the table, but they're bringing ideas as well. They're bringing their expertise. So I think just keeping those lines open and constantly making sure you're connecting with people, and you'll find some stuff and you can make it happen with nothing.
Got you. Lucas, any thoughts to that?
Yeah, definitely. I agree with everything everyone's saying. I find my some of the producers and artists through, Instagram and just doing research. And I think, for producers and writers and artists out there that are looking to get, into this world, do your research, look up the companies that, you like, watch all their content, learn, who are they licensing, learn those artists and dig really deep. I do that. You guys all have access to what I have access to as far as the content out there. And I'll go and chase people, and likewise, like what Kerry was saying, I'm looking on everywhere, SoundCloud, Bandcamp, I'm looking, YouTube, like I said, IG, Twitter, and I'm finding really cool stuff. And I think the weirder it is, the better it is, honestly, to me, because I already, have guys that can do kind of straightforward hip hop stuff. So when you're sending me stuff, don't send me stuff that's right down the middle, and what else? Because everyone else sending that, send me something interesting, and that might work so well. Things that I think, that we put out that I'm like, I don't know how this is going to go. It's not straightforward rap or whatever, or pop or something like that. The weirder it is and does really well. So I don't know. But yeah, I encourage people to just collaborate, get out there, work with other writers, work with other producers, work with an independent, content creator, and maybe work for free for a little bit, or just have some sort of arrangement where something does pick up, you guys benefit from that.
Gotcha. Yeah, we go to the next question, man. I think that was some good stuff answered there, man. I hope that answers your questions over there, Channing. We got LaFrance. He said he has a podcast, the Man's View podcast, and wondering, how to integrate to attract more listeners. How do you choose your music, to captivate an audience, I guess that's what he's saying, to people to listen in. So how do you utilize the music to get people to listen in to whatever you're creating and putting out there? Let's go with David.
Oh, I would just say know who you are, know your identity, and rep that. Don't be afraid of it. Don't be ashamed of it. You like what you like. That podcast that you run is something you're doing because you're passionate about it. And whatever content you're featuring that, or whatever you like about what you're doing on that podcast, let that translate to your music. But find a through line, find something, make sure that all your music kind of speaks to each other. And whether it's like Lucas said, if the through line is, it's all kind of weird and a little left of center, own that and rep that. If it's that, you're using all kind of classic songs from like an era of music that is relatively unknown or unpopular or a genre, like rep that and use that.
Facts.
I think it's important to find that through line and that cohesion when you're putting together a package of music or a body of music. And just like an exhibition designer would do in a museum, you want all those individual pieces, all those individual songs to speak to each other. And even if it only makes sense to you, that through line will start to come through and communicate to your audience. And yeah, just I challenge people all the time, like listen to a lot of music, listen to stuff outside of what you think you like. And try to find, maybe a genre or something that you're not familiar with. You never know what you'll find out there.
Man, I don't think we can get better than that answer, David, right there. I mean, that's it. That's something that
tied the bow tie.
Yeah, right. Knock that one out the park.
yeah, for real. For the sake of time, I know I'm getting some comments on some the timing on here. So I want to give one last question for everyone. And, for a young content creator that may be out there that's, looking to get in the industry, what are some inspiring words? What are some advice you can give to young content creators to get to your level in the industry one day? What is some good advice, man? And just kind of to wrap that and kind of tie everything up that we was talking about today. And we'll start with Brandon over here.
Oh man, my advice to any young content creators, always is, I always tell, younger folks when I'm, when I'm speaking at colleges or people come up to me or whatever, make sure you really want this, right? And it sounds simple, but I think what a lot of people don't realize when you're just starting out, whether you're doing something independently or if you're trying to work for ESPN or a Fox Sports or CBS or a 2K, whoever, like you're coming at entry level, you're going to sacrifice a lot, right? You're going to sacrifice hours, you're going to sacrifice free time. In the case of ESPN, right? You're likely going to work in Bristol, Connecticut, which is not necessarily the sexiest place on earth, right? And so, I say that because I get a lot of people come up to me like, oh, I want to do judo. I was like, well, did you apply online? You use me as a reference. Oh, yeah, but in LA, I'm like, nah, and then the whole face changes, and I'm like, well, you don't really want this. And so I think you just really, really have to make sure whatever it is, whether it's video, content creation, music, whatever, make sure you really want it because speaking for anybody, you guys on the music side know, like, it's a lot of sacrifice involved. It's a ton of sacrifice involved. And just, don't wait on an opportunity to come to you. Like a lot of the hungriest people I see, I was hungry when I was in school and, I'm far removed from college now, but I did a lot, right? A lot. A lot of cats I run into now are killing me, like killing me. I was like, dude, I felt like I was lazy. I was doing 18 different things. But it's like, you know, people are producing their own podcasts now, right? They're doing their own video sites and like, well, I shoot weddings on the weekends and I shoot high school football games and I do this and that. Like, you have to really hone your craft. Right? Like, you know, nobody is going to just be sitting around waiting to give you opportunity. You have to work on your craft every day. And then you have to ask yourself, like, what makes me different from the 5,000 other applicants who have their resume in on the ESPN.com, right? So you have to set yourself apart. And that's really the biggest thing, man. It's tough. And it's going to be tough. You know, it doesn't happen overnight, but stick with it. And, it can't happen. You know, I'm a product, you know, I'm from Canton, Ohio, man. Like, it's not really a lot of dudes that just come out and just, you know, go on and do whatever they want to do. So, like, it can happen for me. It can happen for anybody, man. Just stick with it.
Gotcha. Jared, you got some stuff to add to that, man?
Yeah, man. Big time. Honestly, bro, I'm a very faith-based person. So for me, I mean, I'll put everything under these 3 pillars, right? The first one is to have faith in something. It doesn't matter what it is. Just have faith in something. It'll help you. It'll help drive you, right? Now, consistency. Keep going. You know, no matter what it is, keep going. Make changes. Keep going. Just keep going. Don't stop. And hard work. Knowing that no matter what, you're going to have to work hard. You know what I'm saying? Like subpar is not going to cut it. You know, knowing that ahead of time, getting your mind ready for that, knowing you're going to have to work hard. That's another thing. And then to be honest too, like, my biggest one, like I said, is maintain relationships. And I'll keep this short, but like the whole reason I got to 2K was because I met Ronnie. If you guys are familiar, Ronnie 2K at a party in LA. Right. Like literally just happened to run into him, you know, happened to meet some of the guys that do our mobile game. They introduced me to Ronnie. We linked up real quick, and then that was it. Shot him an email every time I did something. Anytime I did something, hey, Ronnie, check this out. And then, you know, here we are a couple years later. So, you know, big thing, just maintain relationships, you know, and like I said before, be genuine about it, because a lot of these people in the industry are going to be able to see through the BS, and you want to come correct, and you want to stand out, like Brandon was saying. So, you know, just maintain those relationships, you know, keep the faith, know what you're doing, know what you don't want to do, and you'll be all right. For
Gotcha.
Sure.
Kerry, any other feedback to that?
Yeah, I think definitely just to echo what Brandon said about working on your craft. You know, if you're waiting on to get a position, like, you know, all of us, we have, you know, we're blessed to be in our jobs. And I think if you're waiting on saying like, hey, when I get a position like that, I'm going to be able to do this, then you're not ready for it. You got to work with where you are, with what you have, with where you are. And then to echo what Jared said about faith is just making sure you constantly, you know, you're believing in yourself and that you're being propelled by that. And I'll leave y'all with this, like, because it's great. I love Jared's story about meeting somebody and kind of having that opportunity. But like, I didn't know anybody at the Dallas Cowboys, and people ask me all the time, and they're like, "Yeah, who'd you know? How'd you get there?" Like when I went in for an interview, my boss straight up told me to my face, he said, "I don't know if you can shoot football," because I'd never done it before. And my response to him was, "You can put me in the room, and I might not know as much as everybody, but nobody else is going to outwork me. So you might not be able to say that in a year. You can say it right now, but you can't say it in a year." And so I want just people to realize, like, it don't matter where you come from. It don't matter what you know, what kind of equipment you have access to, what kind of resources you have access to. You can do it. If you set your mind to it, and if you know that's something that you're passionate about, you can do it. And just don't stop until you reach that goal.
David, can you give me one sentence of that person that's sitting there on the teeter about getting to this game?
I can't say anything better than Brandon, Jared, and Kerry just did, but I would just say I'd echo all those sentiments. You know, you got to work hard. You got to work long. You know it's going to be the hours. And like Kerry said, you might not be the best one or know the most in the room, but nobody's going to work harder than him. And that's how he got there. And I echo that sentiment across what Brandon and Jared said too. Got you. Well, guys, I do thank you guys for your time.
Thank you, guys.
And getting to know you guys here, first time meeting some of you here via the Zoom, man. And do appreciate everyone tuning in. I hope you got something out of it. We'll definitely do some more of these. If we weren't able to get to your questions, definitely feel free to go to our website, reach out to us. More than
Also,
welcome.
IG, DM the IG
Yeah,
questions.
DM the
we'll do our
IG
best to answer them.
questions, and we'll do our best to answer them. Go through them and do it that way. Before we go, everyone give their tag or where they can find you or how they contact you, whether it be social media or however you want to do that. Let's start with Jared. Give your social media out, man.
Oh yeah, no doubt. Daye Dolo, DAYEDOLO. That's Facebook. It's just my name, Jared Daye, but Instagram, Twitter, Daye Dolo.
Got you. Kerry, where can they find you?
Just at Carey Loftin, KERRYLOFTON on Instagram and Twitter. I don't use Facebook. So.
Gotcha. Hey, Brandon, where can people get you at, man?
Yes, sir. Across social media platforms at Lowe Specific. That's LOWE, as in my last name, Specific, SPECIFIC.
And David, did you have something to reference on there?
I'm an old head, so
LinkedIn.
I'm not popular on the social media. You guys,
Go follow 2K NBA 2K then. How about that?
Yeah, check us out, man.
We music submissions at 2K.com. We're always paying attention out there. So
that's great stuff. Glad you did that.
Cool.
Good stuff. Say that email one more time for the submissions.
Music submissions at 2K.com. And
that was some of the other questions.
To me and my team and to Jared and the gang. So we listen to everything that comes in. If we hear something like Lucas was saying, unique, weird, special, we'll reach out.
Yep. We're
Lucas, where can they reach you, and then how can they submit to the production?
So I put it in the chat to submit music for production. For the catalog, it's production.upm-us at umusic.com. And I'll put it in the chat once again. It might have got lost in there. And then my IG is, easiest way to keep track of what's going on. I post a lot about placements and producers and artists and stuff that we're working with. So it's always a great platform. Luke out there, all one word. And I put that in the chat as well.
Got you. And you can find me on official DJ A.D on Instagram and AD.Johnson or AD Johnson on LinkedIn, anywhere on there. So definitely reach out to us. We'd love to hear from you. And again, thank you so much for being here, and hope you guys go out there and create some unique stuff during this time. Good stuff, man.
Thank you to everyone checking us out. Thank you, guys.